The fact that this Malayalam movie pulled off sequences with such slick technical prowess in a 30 crore budget just tells you that their priorities are set in what matters. We need to make what the audience sees feel like their trip to the theatre is worth it. They're working on a whole different field, honestly. Loka slowly turned into becoming one of the most anticipated films for the year for me, for the high concept it was attempting and the faith that Dulquer Salmaan was investing in the project as a producer. The teaser and trailer intrigued me so much that with the limited shows available in the Delhi NCR region, I must say that this is the underdog story that I really want to root and rave about in 2025. The movie focuses on Kalyani playing the role of Chandra, who moves to Bangalore recently, and various snippets from the trailer made everyone assume that she has a physical ability that is not normal to humans. Naslen playing the role of Sunny, taking interest in Chandra, who moves next door to him. Sunny, who stays with his other professionally incompetent flatmates, finds himself in several intimidating situations owing to the mysterious presence of Chandra. What are Chandra's powers? What is her purpose in Bangalore? How does a police officer played by Sandy cross paths with the duo? And what ultimately becomes the point of conflict is the storyline of Loka. The film's trailer gave away absolutely nothing regarding the powers of Chandra, and what I found amusing and appreciative about the marketing of this film is that Kalyani has been adamant in convincing everyone to limit their expectations, especially those who are creating parallels with the Marvel Universe or even franchises like Dune. These comparisons often put the movie on a pedestal of expectations, ruining the experience of simply stepping in for a film without knowing anything. Elements have been kept at bay, and this has led to a more old school experience of stepping into the theatre without knowing much about the film. I hope many producers understand how effective this less is more strategy is for films. Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the movie so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch Loka in theatres or not. The underwhelming aspects: odd screenplay choice and certain action blocks. I'm an absolute fan of the editing and screenplay choices that the movie was making throughout its 2 hour and 30-minute running time. However, I must say that there is a screenplay choice that the movie makes which somewhat gave me whiplash, acting as a minor speed bump to the storytelling. There is a sequence in which Chandra finds herself cornered due to a bunch of goons having ill intentions. This is the point where the screenplay writers Dominic Arun and Santi Balachandran choose to transition to a flashback. This provides us more information about the lore, the world, and specifically about the roots of Chandra. However, this sequence itself, in the form of a bedtime story being told, comes absolutely out of nowhere. The problem is not the origin story itself, but the way it is placed in the screenplay, considering especially the events that are taking place in the current timeline. I was in retrospect thinking about the effectiveness of this same sequence if it was placed in the beginning without alluding it to be an origin story, almost allowing the viewer themselves to connect the dots. I know I cannot really get into specifics because of spoilers, but the filmmaker attempts to create parallels of what went down centuries ago to how things are transpiring today. And I think its sheer placement in the initial parts of the story would have really made the storytelling seamless. Finally, you may have seen Chandra's character in the trailer move like Nightcrawler, and the filmmakers really employ this superpower with great effectiveness in the action sequences. However, there are certain portions of the climax action set piece, especially when Chandra goes toe-to-toe with the antagonist, where the dependence on some money shots and slow motion set pieces weigh down the film's technical quality. The action set piece, specifically highlighting Kalyani's ability as an action star, commences with great finesse. However, as the sequence transitions to long minutes of hand-to-hand combat, it has several portions where you wanted the action choreography to flow just a little better. It in no way discounts what the film was otherwise capable of pulling off, because it's absolutely insane what the makers have done with the resources available to them, something that even the biggest production houses with the craziest investments are incapable of producing. The good: production design and score. I absolutely loved the aesthetic palette of this movie. It has a grungy and retro tone that provides a sense of modern day town with a hint of dystopia also being splashed around everywhere. Think of a parallel like the streets of Paharganj from Dev D and add a splash of color that you saw in Blade Runner 2049. And that is what cinematographer Nimish Ravi and production designer Banglan was capable of pulling off in this film. The film is set in Bangalore, and the establishment in which the characters reside seem to be from a world which any Malayalam movie may be set in. I was seeing the frames of Loka, and it genuinely felt like a joint universe of seeing a Chandra with her superhuman ability. She could easily be found in the background of Avesham as Ranga seems to be partying somewhere. I love that there is a realism and groundedness with this approach towards Loka. It doesn't seem like a world that is alien to the audience. This is something that my favorite superhero movies like Minal Murli, Bhavesh Joshi, or even Maaveeran pulled off. High concepts in regular human spaces versus CGI slop that one cannot connect with. The score composed by Jakes Vijay is one of the strongest qualities of this film, elevating the beautiful visuals several times. Specifically, this operatic score as one understands the legend of Chandra and her capabilities, and especially this whimsical, magical score that reminded me of Hedwig's theme from Harry Potter. I wished Jakes really went absolutely nuts in the climax action set piece, where I felt like the musical score demanded a little more vigor and gusto to match the visuals. However, if you equate the teaser to have this rousing score that really encapsulates an epic to be witnessed on the big screen, it's merely a glimpse of the great work he has done throughout the film. Transitions and building the lore. I absolutely loved some of the transitions and camera choices the cinematographer Nimish Ravi and editor Chaman Chako was making in this film. I mean, you have sequences of salt falling on a black sheet of paper on a table, almost with ease transitioning to the starry night sky. You have a beautiful shot of tongs utilized to extract a bullet from a body that switched to ice being put for a stiff drink. And it's these inventive shots that really make you commend the technical finesse of this film. I loved the balance of the new and old school that was being attempted also. The aesthetic appeal of certain establishments in the film seemed to be stuck in a time machine, with iPods, landlines and letters often featuring, giving you small details as the film progresses for you yourself to connect the dots. What I love about the build-up of this movie is that it organically builds this universe. The characters, the legend, and their purpose has a clear vision versus just the idea of making a badass superhero pan-Indian film. It's way more nuanced than that. And in an atmosphere where one is chasing this pan-Indian model where things just look try-hard cool, I love that the makers have an attention to detail with their worlds, at least giving off the energy like they bloody care. The cast and cameos. I think the performances of this movie were spectacular. Kalyani is an absolute badass as Chandra, and she is a great vessel to tell this story. She understands the assignment on the attitude and body language required for a role like Chandra. There is so much that she is processing in her mind, a vagabond of sorts who can't help but be emotionally drawn towards people on her journey. She has this weight on her shoulders in every frame, even in the momentary stillness that the film focuses on. However, she switches it with great conviction whenever Chandra is required to kick some ass, and Kalyani physically commits to the role, making several of her combat sequences convincing and genuinely cool. Naslen is such a brilliant addition to this tale because this role could have easily been reserved for just mere comedic relief, but he has this personable ability where there is a charm even in the humor, never making several of his laugh out loud moments seem forced. The dynamic between him and Chandra organically builds, and the several revelations that have him dumbstruck just become great additions to the whimsical nature of this film. Chandu Salim Kumar and Arun Kurian as Sunny's friends are hilarious, and I must say that Sandy, who you may remember from Leo, adds the evil punch required for this film to up the stakes. However, I think what's the most refreshing quality about this film is that it actually highlights the team spirit of Malayalam cinema to come together for one vision. The cameos that you may have heard about are not slop that one utilizes in commercial offerings or pan-Indian projects recently, where you can clearly tell that the integration of these stars is merely to capture their homegrown markets by handing over them a basic background score and make them walk in slow motion. The cameos in this film have a specific purpose, and more importantly, their integration seems organic versus what one would assume it being, just being intended for the hooting and cheering in theaters. Another aspect of this vision that I admire is that audiences who consistently watch movies in theaters today roll their eyes when a movie in their title presents a part 1. Because it simply highlights the dependence of filmmakers to make everything a franchise. But trust me when I say this movie is a rare instance where part 1 is fully justified and where the possibilities or where this title will go has you genuinely excited. And that was a video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about Loka. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.